In today's Take a Day, I want to talk about Paul George of the Los Angeles Clippers. I want to talk about what we should expect from him going through this season as the season continues on. Now, before we get into that, though, please like, subscribe, also hit the notification bell, just so you can get the newest and the bonus content first. We put out content every day, so you won't miss any content here. Now, let's just go ahead and jump right into this. So, the last two games, Paul George has been struggling mightily. Very, inconsistent play. He even admitted that, he got tired legs. I mean, I was reading a report about, him after the game, and I listened a little bit of his post game, but I mainly just read it, looking at other topics as well. But saying that he was basically had to get his legs under him. He was, a little fatigued. And to me, that's just not something you want to hear out of your star player because, first off, it's early in the season. And, I talked last week or the week before that about, starting the season fast. And if you want to start the season fast, you have to find ways to get wins against teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder, the teams you're supposed to beat. Because I've said before, just like, I've said, many times before, if you want to be a great team, you have to beat the teams you're supposed to beat, and that's just what the great teams do. You can find yourself losing a game here and there, something like that. I mean, this would be a whole different story if they lost this game to OKC and, it's like, more than half the season is over with, or, it's that all-star break or something like that. This would be a different type loss then. But, when you lose, when you lose games to, teams like I said, OKC, like Cleveland, teams like that, or I'll even, I don't want to say Toronto. They're not the worst team in the NBA, I don't think. But, the point is when you're losing to teams like that, when you clearly have the superior team, it really makes the situation look worse for you because it makes it look like, well, what's going to happen when you go up against a juggernaut team who has way more talent and way more firepower than the teams you lost to? And, just to throw it out there, both LA teams lost last night, but the Clippers, lost to me. It struck me a little differently because I'm looking at a Clippers team that's at home. Paul George is the guy. Everybody's, at home, you got to protect your home crowd. You got to protect your home ground. You know what I'm saying? You have to do that. When you're playing home games, those are big games. You know what I'm saying? Those are games you got to win. You got to protect your home court. That's always been the notion in any sport. And it doesn't matter, basketball, football, wherever. And when you see a team like the Clippers go against a team like Cleveland, and Colin Sexton not only plays really well, but the rest of the starters on Cleveland all scoring in double digits. I mean, they had at least six players in double figures. And, they had five. I think they had one off the bench. But, they had about six players in double figures. And you would think that the Clippers at home would be able to make some defensive stops, kind of slow them down a little bit. And you would think Paul George would shoot better than 6 for 20 and have over 20 points. But that didn't happen. And this is what I'm talking about. It's games like these that define the team at times because, you look back at losses like this as you go through the season and you be like, well, we would have won that game there, that game here, a game that we clearly should have won. We might be in the 5th seed or the 6th seed instead of being in the 7th or 8th seed trying to get into the playoffs. It's games like these that you can always go back and harp on and say what you could have done and everything like that. But of course you can't change it. But at the same time, you can make changes and adjustments to your game so things like this won't happen again. Because to be honest with you, if you told me that the Cleveland Cavaliers, beat the Clippers is one thing, but to hold the Clippers to 79 points is another thing, especially holding them to 79 points at home. That's really, really odd. And, as for Paul George, I'm not going to put all the blame on Paul George. I know that it doesn't look good these last couple games, but the thing is with Paul George, I'm starting to wonder, is this something that you're going to get from Paul George predominantly all season? Are you going to have a lot of highs Are you going to have a lot of highs from, PG, and are you going to have a lot of lows? Is it going to be Jekyll and Hyde basketball? Is it going to be, up and down? Is my thing is there going to be really any consistency from Paul George that, the Clippers can count on in regards to efficiency and the shots that he's taking and the shots that he's making? Of course, Paul George is going to put up numbers. Of course, he's going to average big numbers, 20, 30 points, but how efficient is he going to be in scoring those points? Because what Clipper Nation is used to from their main guy and Kawhi Leonard, they're used to consistency, they're used to efficient shooting, and they're used to a star player taking over a game when needed. And when you look at this game here, this was clearly a game Paul George, when he saw the game, getting away or anything like that, or just no matter what it is, this is clearly a game Paul George, definitely, probably should have had over 20-something points, because, and I said it, in the reaction video I made last night, it's just nobody on the Cleveland Cavaliers that can guard Paul George. It's nobody on there that can shut him down. It's nobody on there that, can neutralize anything he does offensively. So it's like, to see him struggle against a team like this, when clearly this should be an easy W for the Clippers, and they should be adding this to their repertoire in regards to wins and piling up wins as much as they can. They find themselves losing a game that they should have won and lost by double digits and didn't even crack over 80 points in this game. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, maybe the Clippers are just tired as a team. Maybe it's just fatigue, like Paul George said. But, at the same time, you can't be fatigued this early in the season. It's just the way it is. You can't do it. You have to find a way to dig deep and get that extra second win out of you. I mean, honestly, you shouldn't even need your second win this early in the season, because it's still early. And I know a lot of teams, are tired and stuff because of the season, is 82 games this season. They had a short off season, all that type of stuff. But, that goes for every other team too. Every other team had, a shortened off season, or, whatever it is. Every other team going through the same thing, but other teams are playing better. And that's just the way it is. Now, unfortunately, the two LA teams, are playing bad right now, which is really, really weird to me. But at the same time, it's like both LA teams are just losing the teams they're not supposed to. And the team, and when they win, they're making the win a whole lot harder than what it should be. You see what I'm saying? And that's exactly what the Clippers are doing along with the Lakers. But in the Clippers' sake, the Clippers, Paul George and the rest of this crew, they played together last year in the playoffs when Kawhi Leonard went down. You would think they have a little bit better chemistry there, or you would think they would be more, amped up and ready to go. And just, I don't know. I mean, honestly, from what you saw last year in the playoffs, you would think this team would be, a little bit better than what they've shown so far. And like I said, it's early in the season. It's really hard to, put a pinpoint on a team this early in the season. But at the same time, you have to go by what you see, and you got to go by what have you done for me lately. And that's just the way it goes when it comes to sports. But, this team here, like I said, they got a lot of good pieces still, the same pieces predominantly from last year, minus Patrick Beverley. Minus Rondo, I guess. But I mean, they still predominantly got the same team, and they did this, in the playoffs when Kawhi Leonard went down. So you thought that this team would be a little bit more ready to just go out here and, with a chip on their shoulder. But it's like the Clippers are not playing that way. And, it could be due to the fact of, their leader, or, it could be due to the fact that they're just tired and, and everything that Paul George said. But the problem with the Clippers that I see, if the Clippers younger players are going to watch their star player and Paul George have inconsistent games where he's not being consistent in regards to shooting, efficiency, and just taking high percentage shots and all those type things. It's those type of bad habits or things like that will just wear off on a lot of the young players. That's exactly how it goes. It's been going like that forever in sports. You know what I'm saying? What the main player does, a lot of the young players fall into the same category and have the same type tendencies. It's just the way it is. Even a lot of older players, if you're playing with another player who's not as inclined as you are, you might end up having some of his tendencies. I mean, like I said, look at the Lakers with, Westbrook and LeBron. When Westbrook and LeBron has been on the floor so far, there's times where I've seen LeBron get some turnovers that he would never do if Westbrook wasn't there, because those bad habits wouldn't be around him. You know what I'm saying? And it's not saying that LeBron is going to turn the ball over like Westbrook, but I'm just saying, LeBron has some turnovers between the preseason and the regular season that I've never seen him have. But, when you're playing around people who play inconsistent or any type of inefficiency, sometimes it could rub off on you in the wrong way. And my thing is, Paul George is the lead guy of the team right now until Kawhi Leonard comes back, and he's going to have to lead by example a lot better in regards to games like these. I mean, this is very early in the season. This is game 4 or 5 in the season. You can't be talking about being fatigued this early when the season hasn't even really started yet. Now, I know, like I said, a lot of other teams are, struggling too. The Brooklyn Nets are not doing that good, all those things. I get all that. But at the same time, you have this notion of getting out of everybody's head that you're not playoff P. You're the real playoff P. You're a great player. Well, that is true. Paul George is a really good player. I'm not going to say he isn't, but at the same time, it's games like these where you have to show up and show out and put your team on your back sometime. Sometimes the team don't have it, but it's up to you to put the team on your back and help carry them to victory. And that's just something that, I feel like Paul George might struggle with going through the season consistently, you know what I'm saying? Because like I said, Clipper Nation is used to Kawhi Leonard being the number one guy, and everybody knows how efficient he is. He doesn't take too many bad shots. He plays within his means, and Kawhi Leonard can be explosive at times, with the dunking on people and things like that, but he also plays within his means in regards to he knows where his spots are. He gets to his spots anytime he wants to, and he shoots a high percentage, and he doesn't hurt his team. And these are the type of skills or mental type leadership skills that Paul George need to at least possess until Kawhi Leonard comes back, because, your efficiency is big in regards to the Clippers' success. And that's what Paul George needs to realize. And hopefully, I hope Paul George doesn't, have a season where it's Jekyll and Hyde, a lot of up and down, 3-4 games he plays like an MVP. And then the next 1 or 2 games, he plays like, a rookie type player, something like that. I mean, I hope he doesn't have a season like that, because, I mean, really, if he does, I mean, who knows where the Clippers would be record wise if Paul George continues to have a season like that. And I really think that, I truly believe Paul George can, rectify this and, play better with more consistency going forward, and don't have too many games like this, these last 2 games where he basically struck out and didn't play well at all. I personally think he'll definitely have, a lot of good games and things like that. But understandably, you have to realize, the 2 games before these last 2 where he scored 41 and I think 30 something points, the Clippers actually lost those games, the games that he actually scored a lot of points. And then the games, the one game he struggled last game, they won, and this one that they lost. But it's just, that's what I'm saying. It's a lot of Jekyll and Hyde up and down with the team, and that's what I'm saying. Like you don't want to see that consistently going through the whole season. You want to see a team be more consistent in their approach and how they play other teams, and exactly who takes the last shot. Everybody's in position they're supposed to be. Everybody knows their role. That's the type of teams that win championships. And the Clippers, of course, they don't have Kawhi Leonard, but at the same time, they still need to show more structure as a team, because they played in the playoffs last year without Kawhi Leonard and made it to a conference finals, and nobody thought they would when Kawhi Leonard went down. But they did, regardless if it was the emergence of Terrence Mann or not, or whoever it was. You can say whoever came out, the Clippers made it to the conference finals, and that was big for them. But at the same time, because you've done that, this team looks to me, they should have more structure. I personally think that the Clippers should be 3-1 or 4-1 right now. I personally think they should be that. I don't think they should be, with 1-3, 1-4, or anything like that. I don't think that should be their record. They should be a lot better than that to me. I mean, I know it's early in the season, but like I said, you have to start out fast when you don't have your best player. You have to compile all the wins you can, because the season's only going to get harder when you start getting the schedule where you're playing the top 4 or 5 teams in the NBA in that whole week. See, this week here, this is early in the season, but this week here, I think they have Cleveland twice. I think they play OKC. I think they play another easy team in between that. I mean, it's like, this is one of those weeks where the Clippers, have an easy schedule, and you have to take advantage of those type of things, especially when you're undermanned. You know what I'm saying? You have to do that because you don't have your best player to make up for a lot of issues that you do have. And your best player can help get you over the hump, but he's not there. So these type of wins right here are crucial, or these type of games right here are crucial for the Clippers, because these teams like OKC and, the Cleveland Cavaliers and, the San Antonio Spurs, teams like that, you have to take advantage of your schedule. And that's the main thing. You got to take advantage of your schedule. And right now, the Clippers schedule really is easy. It's not, I mean, I'm not going to say, the Cavs are a pushover, because they're not. But everybody knows the Clippers have more talent than the Cavaliers. Cavaliers got one good player, and Colin Sexton is really good. But, the Clippers got better players all around. So, I mean, you got to win a game like that, especially at home. You can't have a team like Cleveland hold you under 80 points on a home floor. Well, even if it wasn't at home, it doesn't matter. Cleveland can't hold you at 80 points nowhere. No gym, no recreational gym, no stadium, arena, nowhere. They can't hold you under 80 points. Not with all the offensive firepower that you have. And you have the better star player. Colin Sexton is a star player for the Cleveland. He's not a star player in most people's eyes, but he's a star player for Cleveland. But the star player for the Clippers is Paul George. Paul George is a better player than Colin Sexton. So when you look at it from that mentality, Paul George has got to be better. You can't let somebody like Colin Sexton come into your house and beat you and hold you under 80 points, and you shoot 6 for 20 and don't even crack over 20 points yourself. That's not winning basketball. You have to take care of and beat the teams you're supposed to beat. You have to beat the easier teams and take advantage of your schedule, because when your schedule starts getting harder down the line of the season, well, then you might be going through the 4 or 5 game losing streaks and things like that. And when that starts creeping in, then what do? You've already set a tone of losing the teams inferior to you, like like I said, Cleveland Cavaliers. I think they get to play the Cleveland again, I think tomorrow, Friday or Saturday or something like that. I know they play Cleveland again, I believe. But my point is, you're playing down to your competition. And that's not what you're supposed to be doing, because you need to get all the wins you can, because you got to find a way to secure a spot in the playoffs. And that's got to be your mentality the whole season, because you're undermanned and you don't know what Serge Ibaka's coming back. You don't know what type of Serge Ibaka you're going to get. Yeah, he will come back, but is he going to be the Serge Ibaka from a couple seasons ago on Toronto, or maybe the Serge Ibaka from back in the day in OKC? Can you prove that? You don't know that. So this is what I'm saying. All the easiest wins you can get, you have to compile those, because you just don't know what you're going to get out of your main core players when they come back. I mean, it might take Kawhi like a few weeks to a month, to get back into his rhythm, how he was. So a few weeks to a month. Well, I mean, that's probably in a month's time, NBA teams play a lot of games in 1 month. You see what I'm saying? So that's a lot of basketball that, Kawhi is out of his rhythm, and you're trying to implement him back in there, and you don't want to be losing games in between, because, I mean, let's say you're like the 5th or 6th seed at that point when Kawhi comes back. If you start losing games, you could find yourself as the 8th seed, 9th seed, trying to find your way into a play-in tournament. So this is what I'm saying. Games like these against teams like Cleveland, OKC, Spurs, teams like that, you got to find a way to win these type games. And Paul George has to show up in games like these. Don't just show up in the premier games that come on Christmas and those type games and, Thanksgiving and all those. Don't just show up in the premier games. Show up in these games too, because these games actually matter. And these games are the ones that you need, that you'll need to, utilize. So when you look back on your record, or you look at your record in April or May, somewhere in there, you could be like, okay, yeah, we had a statement win here, we had a statement win there, we took care of business here, we took care of business there, and that builds confidence, in a team in regards to how they play going forward in the playoffs, and their approach going into the playoffs as well. It just builds confidence in every type of way. But like I said, I'm not putting it all on Paul George, but for him being star player, I do think he's got to play better, and I do think he's got to be more efficient, because that efficiency will rub off on the younger players on the team. And just because you're the lead player of the team, it's going to rub off on the older players on the team too, because you're the lead guy. And if they see you being efficient, or, not taking a bad shot selection or things like that, just jacking up shots, not being aware of, the game and, how the game is being played and what you need to do to affect the game. Well, then that's how the other players on the team are going to play. The Terrence Manns, maybe the Luke Kennards and all those type players, because they haven't been in the league as long as Paul George. So when you come out and, you show 1 or 2 games where you're dropping 30 and 40, the next 2 games, you can't put over 20 points, and you shoot very, very poor from the field, you can't have that. You can't sustain that type of, gameplay throughout the season, because it's going to rub off on other players. And on top of that, like I said, it's really just going to make the team kind of, predictable. It's going to make them easier. It's going to make the Clippers easier to beat. And it's going to make the Clippers not much of a threat, because if teams can go into games and be like, well, we can guard Paul George, but it might be one, we kind of expect Paul George to turn into playoff P at some point during the game. Well, that changes the mentality of teams playing the Clippers, and that changes the Clippers dynamic. You see what I'm saying? So Paul George has to be better. He has to play better. He has to play more consistent, and he has to be more efficient with the shot. I mean, I know Paul George is going to put up points. He's going to put up points all season. He's going to have a lot of big games, but it has to be consistent. It can't be 2-3 games this week, you drop 29, and then 3-4 games next week, well, you drop 14, 15 points each of those next 3 games. It can't be like that. If you drop if you drop 29 points these last 3 or 4 games, well, the next 3 or 4 games after that, you got to at least drop 25 plus points and shoot pretty efficient, or as efficient as you can. You see what I'm saying? It has to be more consistency. It's just not going to work that way for the Clippers. And I'm telling you, these teams are coming at them. These teams know the Clippers are a contender. Just like the teams know the Lakers are a contender. Teams are coming at you. They want to make an example out of you. They want to beat you. They want to humiliate you. And they want to be even these young teams like OKC and teams like that, they want to make a name for themselves. And the best way to do it is to make an example out of you, because you're technically the better team and you technically have the better player. So you have to play like it. But hey, that's my take on the situation there. Leave any comments in the comment section and let me know what you think in regards to, the comments I made. If you agree or disagree, I'm always cool with it. And let me know. And hey, Khaliis out.